I'm Robby Collins, comedian from South Africa. I am 2023 Comedian of the Year and 2024 Headline of the Year. Most comedians actually will perform happily for free because of the joy they get on stage. If I was the last comedian on earth and I had to write some advice for the next generation of people to come and inhabit this earth, I would probably write, stay at home on 9/11. How does it sound? Are you happy? Is it better? Okay, cool. First time I ever performed was back in 2008. It was at a place called Thunder Rock Diner, and I had no idea what I was doing, but I was prepared. I wrote some material down, and I thought I had 20 minutes of material, but I ended up performing for 3.5 minutes. But the audience loved it, they enjoyed it, and I remember going up to the guy after the gig expecting to get paid, and he just shook my hand and said, "Come back next week." I think my craft has evolved because, one, I don't write down my jokes anymore word for word. I just write down keywords because I realize in the years of doing comedy, each audience is different, and if you write down your jokes word for word, you want to specifically perform what you prepared instead of being in the room and going where the audience takes you, which I find is a lot more comfortable and natural. But at the same time, it's preparing as much as possible. I also realized that bombing on stage is actually a really cool thing. When you're a young comedian, dying on stage is terrifying. I remember the first time I died on stage, because usually you start bad and get good. I started good and got bad. My first 10 shows were great, and the 11th show, the comics were warning me, they're saying it's gonna happen. My 11th show, I bombed, and I'll never forget this lady's face in the front row. This white lady eating a steak, and I told a joke, and she just stopped cutting the steak and looked up at me and said, "Carry on." I'll never forget that white woman's face. Every gig is new. So like what I thought was amazing a couple years ago now seems normal, but the fear and the nerves never stop. I find that most of the time I'm more nervous in front of a smaller crowd than I am in front of 4,000 people. Because a smaller crowd, you can feel the emotions and you can hear when they stop cutting the steak. Is there such a thing as a good laugh and a bad laugh? Yes. Ask Dave Chappelle. He walked away for 50 million for the exact same reason. I think whether you being on stage or whether you around friends, you know when they're laughing with you and they're laughing at you. And you gotta be very honest with what kind of laugh you're receiving. But there's also cheap laughs where you don't really like the joke, but you know it's gonna make people laugh just so you can get away with doing the other joke. So sometimes with my stand-up, like I'll do the simpler joke just so I can do the joke about anal.
Our army probably trains like banana doing these things.
Oh yeah, I think many times I've picked up a bad laugh or a bad energy from a crowd. Like sometimes, it's weird, sometimes people leave their house and come to a comedy show and are miserable. and you're like, what happened? You left the house to be sad. And people don't realize how much it affects us as comedians and as human beings. Because most comedians actually will perform happily for free because of the joy they get on stage. And I think sometimes you can feel like there's not love in the room. And for comedy to work, there needs to be love in the room, where we can all just have fun, laugh with each other, at each other. And so yeah, it's not necessarily a bad laugh, but it's the bad feeling. Like people, sometimes they're not even listening, they're just talking or ordering drinks loudly, and that can kind of interrupt what's meant to be happening in that space. The one thing I've noticed from being around some of the biggest comedians in the world, Dave Chappelle, Trevor Noah, Chris Rock, Jeff Ross, like all these people are successful because they are willing to fail. On stage, like, they take risks, and you think somebody of that caliber with that money and fame would want to always be amazing, but I realize they're amazing because they fail comfortably and they just get back up there. And I think there's a level of humility that a comedian requires to get back up on stage. Some people feel like they've outgrown the clubs, and I think the clubs is where birth happens of new ideas, jokes, and I think just stage time, because people come out in the clubs and they might not necessarily be your fan, but you learn to still make people laugh even if they aren't on your side up front.
You know, it's crazy. If you come to Africa and find yourself a white girl, you really didn't want a black girl. Who comes to Africa and finds another white person?
Why do I do comedy? There's many reasons. I always wanted to do comedy from the age of 13, but also a big reason is I dropped out of high school and I thought that I wouldn't be able to get another decent job. So I was kind of forced to follow my dreams. And while doing comedy over the past 16 years, I've realized that comedians and comedy is probably the most honest profession ever. Like, it's so honest. Some people go to work every day and try and rob people out of money. We honest with you guys. You're just give us your money and we're gonna put a smile on your face. And the more you perform around the world, you realize how much we have in common. And that's cool to share your story, hear other people's stories, and share love. And I think in a world with so much problems, you realize our jobs are actually becoming a lot more important.
I've been in the park playing with gangster dudes. He's like, pass me the ball.
The difference between being popular and being good at your craft, I think it's a tough one, especially when it comes to art, because everybody has their own idea of what's great for them. There's people who love Medea movies. I don't watch Medea movies, but I also understand why people love those movies. And I think we all have different dreams. Some people want to do comedy because they want to get into movies. And I personally do stand-up because I just want to do stand-up. We all have different dreams, and I think the important thing is to just focus on what you want out of it. That's very important. A lot of people don't know what they want, but not many people know what they want. I think we get sidetracked with our dreams because we see somebody else getting something that seems to be more than what we have. But just focus on your thing. And making money isn't selling out. It's okay to have food on your table and drive a nice car. And if that's what makes you happy, that's fine. Some of the best advice I've ever gotten, it varies from comedians to my mother to just a random person. One being that while you might be frustrated at where you are in life or in your career, understand that you're also living in something you prayed for. And to just be in the moment and be grateful, practice gratitude. I think with social media, a lot of us can start doubting where we are in life because we're seeing so many people around us doing amazing things, what we think is amazing, and you don't realize what you're doing is great as well. The other being, when I was opening for Chappelle for the first time on tour, I was around him a lot, and I was just hovering and trying for him to give me advice, because he's the GOAT. And at the time, when I opened for him the first time, I was 10 years in the game. And Dave's been doing comedy for as long as I've been alive. And he asked me, how long are you doing it for? I was like, 10 years. And the only bit of advice he said, now it's gonna make sense. And I think a big thing is just being patient. Being patient and also being happy for other people. I think if you can be happy for other people around you, it brings goodness into your life. There's enough room for all of us to exist and do very well.